Hello and welcome to another manga spotlight. This is Choujin X. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with the series. For those who aren't, this is a series by Ishida Sue. I hope I pronounced that right. He is most known for Tokyo Ghoul. So if you guys don't know Choujin X, you probably will know Tokyo Ghoul. And this has a lot of similarities with that. It has the whole like dark fantasy, body horror that series has. So let's go over the summary real quick. When an airplane goes down in a plume of black smoke near their city, best friends Tokio and Azuma join the volunteer search and rescue team. But instead of a wreck of twisted metal, they discover that the plane suffered minimal damage and that over 200 of the passengers are still alive. With their services no longer needed, the friends head for home. But on the way, they run into an old enemy who has picked up some bizarre new powers and an obsession with destroying them. Now, Tokio and Azuma only have one chance to make it out alive, by becoming the superpowered creatures known as Choujin. Being a superpowered creature isn't all it's cracked up to be. Tokio has to hide his transformation from his family and dodge a truancy charge at school, all while dealing with an increasing number of odd incidents happening around town. So yeah, that's the brief little premise. Let's get into it. So for anyone unfamiliar with my spotlights, I usually will go over the first chapter. I know there are plenty of Choujin X chapters at this point in time, but I like to basically just kind of go over the first issue, so to set up what the main story is, so you can kind of get a feel of what you're getting into, and then I'll kind of discuss a little bit of stuff later on. But I don't want to spoil anything because I want you guys to read and enjoy this for yourself. We start off with this little girl named Ellie, and she is flying on a plane, and she drops a tomato, and an old lady picks it up and gives it to her, and we get a brief little background on her. She comes from the countryside. She lives with her grandpappy. He's the one that usually goes around and goes to the markets to sell things, but he hurt his back, so now Ellie is going to be doing it for him. And basically she's going to be going to this fair, and it's like a competition to see who has the best produce. Yeah, Ellie's talking about that. She's talking about her dreams of how she wants to strike it rich, live in a big house, get a dog that's huge, marry a handsome man. And they're interrupted by this guy who's sleeping, and all of a sudden his watch just goes off and he just snaps awake. And at first he's polite, but then he quickly becomes rude, is about to assault the old woman for being in his way when Ellie stops him, and then all of a sudden he explodes into fire. It turns out that he is a Choujin. For anyone who doesn't know what Choujins are basically humans that have some kind of abilities, some kind of special ability of some kind, special powers. Everyone is different. Usually it depends on like your dreams and determinations and feelings, what kind of effect, what kind of powers you have. Once you have a power, that's basically it. Like, it's not like Naruto where you have like a whole list of jutsus that you can learn. It's pretty much, this is what your ability is, you're kind of stuck with it. So his is like a fire smoke ability, and he basically burns everybody inside this airplane, including Ellie. We see our main character, Tokio. He's at school when he looks out the window and he sees a plane with a bunch of smoke coming out of it, and he's not paying attention because he's focused on this plane, this smoking plane that's flying above him. So the teacher kind of yells at him, and we see him in between classes, and he's just talking to a bunch of pigeons. And this is Tokio Kurohara. He's 16 years old. He believes, classes are pointless. He's not very good at really anything. Instead, he has a best friend named Azuma, and Azuma is the one that's good at everything. So, for example, we see him walking home when we see these three guys putting their moves on this woman who's not appreciating it. And so he is about to jump in to help her when Azuma shows up and beats up all the thugs. So Azuma is popular while Tokio is not. Azuma is a great athlete while Tokio is not. He's a good fighter while Tokio is not. He's super smart and good at classes and gets good grades while Tokio is not. So he's the complete opposite of Tokio. Yeah, because of that, Tokio always looks up to Azuma. He always feels like he's just living in his shadows, that he's kind of like dead weight. And meanwhile, the one of the thugs that Azuma attacked, Azuma broke his arms, and the thug is pissed off. He's like, I can't even shop online with these casts on. What am I going to do? That's when this mysterious guy shows up with a briefcase, and he has a bunch of he has like these drugs inside. Yeah, he's like, I think I can help you guys out. Meanwhile, Tokyo goes back home. He's just kind of laying in bed. He sees like a picture of a vulture, and it reminds him of a flashback moment that he had at school where the teacher, their assignment was draw an animal that's just like you. And everyone's like, Azuma, you're so amazing. You're like a lion. And one of them says, hey, Tokyo, like I found an animal just like you, a vulture. And it describes, what a vulture is. These birds are bald in order to prevent bacteria from sticking to them, even when they thrust their heads into the carcasses of animals to feed, also called buzzards. Tokyo's like, why the hell am I like that? And everyone says, buzzards apparently hang around a place waiting to steal prey. It sounds like you, Tokyo. You're always hanging around Azuma. Yeah, of course. He gets pissed off. He leaves. He wishes he could have been a lion too. Azuma tries to tell him, like, well, but apparently buzzards can fly higher than any other bird in the world. That sounds pretty cool, right? So Tokyo's kind of trying to embrace the fact that he's quote unquote a vulture. Kind of like how in My Hero Academia, Deku embraces the Deku name. Basically take a negative and spin it into a positive. So yeah, the next day, Azuma tells him about a plane that crashed. They assume it was a terrorist attack. They think the culprit might be a Choujin. We should go over and investigate and see if we can help the people in any way. Tokyo goes with Azuma to go check out the plane. They see that the plane seems to be fine, not that much damage. Most of the passengers seem to be okay. So they decide to head back home. And as they head back home, they get attacked. Azuma gets hit, and it turns out that it's the bullies that Azuma attacked earlier, that he was trying to protect the woman from. And the leader just beats the absolute crap out of Azuma. And Azuma starts to fight back, but nothing works. And it turns out that this bully is a Choujin. He's a Flex G Choujin. Basically, he's like Luffy from One Piece, or Stretch Armstrong, or Reed Richards. He's like that. And he mentions about how he got his powers from the guy with the briefcase. Basically, it was the drug. It was some kind of mysterious drug that when he injected it into him, it turned him into a Choujin. It also starts turning him psycho. Like he starts saying how much he loves violence. His henchmen are kind of like freaking out by this new attitude. He ends up killing the henchmen. So yeah, he's basically becoming stronger and stronger. And Tokyo like grabs Azuma and tries to escape, and that's when Azuma like points, look, right ahead of you on the floor are two needles, and they're drugs. They're the same drugs that the guy took to become Choujin. And Azuma says, he's like, the only way I can fight back is if I use this. So Azuma is going to inject himself with this drug, become a Choujin. And in the meantime, he wants Tokyo to run away. And Tokyo has like a flashback of when he was being attacked by bullies, and Azuma came in and helped him. And Tokyo, said that he doesn't want to be living in Azuma's shadow all the time. He wants to help Azuma. So he grabs one of the needles, and he's like, I'm going to fight by your side. Like, if I don't do anything now, if I don't help you, then we won't be able to stay friends. We're in this together. And so they inject themselves. Nothing seems to happen with Azuma. Azuma doesn't gain any abilities, but Tokyo does. And his ability is beastification. What that is his ability comes from... so earlier we saw a character, he was like a fire Choujin. He creates fire and smoke. We saw the bully. He is like a flexi Choujin, so he can stretch his body parts and stuff. Beast Choujin is someone who has the powers of an animal. And I'm sure you can guess what kind of powers Tokyo ends up getting. He ends up getting a vulture power. So he becomes a bestial Choujin. His face morphs into that of a vulture. It looks less like a vulture and kind of more like one of those cool plague doctor masks. And his hands turn into what look like vulture claws, and he attacks the Flexi Choujin and just beats the crap out of him, sends him flying. And that's how the chapter ends. And from then on, we have him trying to hide his powers, because at first he's stuck this way. he's stuck with the face of a vulture and the hands of a vulture's claws. And he doesn't know how to turn back into his human form. And so it becomes this whole body horror thing where he's trying to figure out, like, am I permanently stuck like this? How am I going to turn back? And then trying to gain control over his powers. And then it leads into similar territory where eventually he discovers that there's a school that teaches Choujins how to use their powers, and it almost becomes like an X-Men thing, like how to use them for good or just keep them under control and not use them for evil. And then there's evil Choujins out there who want to, do horrible things, so these good ones have to go and fight them. But then there might be something specifically that Tokyo has that other powers want. So it kind of morphs into all that. But I like it. The main character is okay. My problem is just that he's very, I don't want to say weak-willed, because he's not weak-willed. He's just weak. So he's that type of character that, like, even though he knows that the odds are against him, he's willing to keep fighting for what's good and stuff like that. But he's just weak. There's nothing really there to. So like another series I can compare this to, other than obviously Tokyo Ghoul, I would say Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man, you have a character with a not so great backstory who ends up getting these powers, or basically body horror, and they transform them into some creature. In Chainsaw Man's case, it's all the chainsaws. Denji, though, has just a lot of qualities that make him entertaining. Like, even if you took away his powers and you just have Denji being Denji without the whole Chainsaw Man part, he's still a very interesting and entertaining character. Tokyo, not so much. In fact, Ellie, who survives, she becomes one of the main protagonists. She's one of the main trios. She has a very, I love her character. She's great. And it's almost a shame that the main character is so bland. Like, everyone else has their interesting qualities. They bring something to the table. But Tokyo is he's very bland as a character. And to make him the main focal point of the story seems kind of like a wasted opportunity. You could have used someone else. Like, Ellie would have made a better main character than Tokyo. Like, he's just very passive. He's more of like an observer. Like, everything kind of happens around him and he's just kind of watching. Like, all the other characters seem to just, like I said, they have more at stake, or just more going for them, just more entertaining qualities that you want to read and learn about. Whereas Tokyo, like, everything just happens and he's just involved, but he doesn't really do anything to push the story. It's like everyone else around him is better than him and can carry the story better than he does. That's my biggest nitpick. Whereas, like, a Chainsaw Man, like, I freaking love Denji. I can follow a series about Denji. Like, I can have whole chapters dedicated to just Denji doing Denji things. It can even just be like a slice of life of Denji. He doesn't have to go fight any devils or anything, and I will still find entertainment in that. And then you have, like, Dan to Dan, where you have Momo, Ayase, and Okuran, and those characters are freaking amazing. Like, they have their own, like, humorous traits, or just traits that are entertaining. Tokyo doesn't really have that. Yeah, that's my biggest pet peeve of this series. Like, the artwork's fantastic, the story is great, some of the characters are good. Like I said, Ellie is a really good character. She really carries the story. Just wish that Tokyo we had a little bit more. I'm not the biggest fan of Azuma either, especially later on, but he's not a terrible character. It's just he doesn't resonate with me that much. Tokyo, though, it's like there's something there, and it's just he could be a really good character. He's just not there yet, but it's like at this point in time, we're 31 chapters in. How long does it take for him to really like grow into the main role? But other than that, like, again, that's just a small little nitpick. This is still a really great series. I love it. I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite ongoing stuff to read at the moment. This is a really good series. I always look forward to new chapters coming out. But there's just that one little thing that's missing. But other than that, yeah, go check it out. It's free. You can read it on Manga Plus. I'll leave a link to in the description down below where you can read it. I don't know if Manga Plus has all the chapters, because usually the first 3 are there for sure, and then the last 3 are there for sure. Everything in between, I don't know. But there are other scanlation sites you can find it on. But go check it out. It's really good. And if you're a fan of Tokyo Ghoul, like this is very kind of similar. It has the same feel to Tokyo Ghoul. Like, and it shares a lot of similarities, which makes sense because it's by the same creator. I'll say maybe it's less brutal though. I feel like Tokyo Ghoul is way more violent and kind of horrifying than this. This one is like Tokyo Ghoul, but with a little bit more humor, if that makes any sense. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and hope to see you next time. Take care, everybody. Later.